Welcome back to Make It Make Sense with Tomee Sojourner-Campbell. This is episode 6, and today we're going to be talking about embracing joy, whether that's joy in your day-to-day life or that's joy at work or a combination. For those of you who are listening and you are an entrepreneur, you're working as an employee, you're currently in your work and thinking about your next steps, or you're just unsure, you may be starting out in your work journey. I wanted to share this episode with you because I'm at a particular place in my journey. I've been doing my work for over 25 years. And now, as I've looked back at a quarter century, which is hard to believe, that I started my work as a consultant so many decades ago, things have changed, the landscape has changed. And one of the things that's really important for me is embracing the idea of joy, whether that's joyfulness, playfulness in the creation of course curriculums, and playfulness in terms of thinking about the really difficult and challenging work that I do and so many of us do. In my field, I'm multidisciplinary, so I focus on issues related to systemic racism, systemic discrimination, human rights, do a lot of education and working with clients around conflict resolution, conflict management, navigating difficult conversations. But we also do a lot of work around creating communication strategies and putting out videos and educational content. And we're constantly thinking of new ideas and strategies to engage, whether it's employees, community-based members, members in general, if they're a member-based organization. And so in my journey as a consultant, an advisor, and a creator and a content creator, I've really come to the point where it's that fork in the road. It's where's my next exciting journey? And as you see behind me, the virtual background is really just that, a mapping out, if you will. And I've had the great pleasure of working with some phenomenal people so far over my career. And I'm looking forward to, the idea of bringing in more creative energy. So for me, what's really important in terms of embracing joy are 4 key things. Number 1, continuously reminding myself of what joy means, looks like, feels like, tastes like. So I enjoy picking up a paintbrush, picking up a pen, picking up a pencil, quite frankly. I tend to be a bit of an artistic doodler, and then taking those sketches wherever they may be on a napkin, usually not a cloth napkin, it's a paper napkin, on a notebook, a side of my journal, or whatever I can get my hands on. Sometimes it's been a receipt. And I take those images, and I then transfer those images to canvas. And then from the canvas, I use a number of different textures. I certainly, as an artist, I like to use texture-based modalities. So I will use, if I have ash from a match, I'll use ash from a match. I'll use ash from an incense, and then sort of use that as a part of getting some grittiness into the painting, and that brings me joy. So the idea of just thinking about what will I create, what will it look like, not really worrying about the end product, to be honest with you, and just thinking about the process. So for me, finding joy, embracing joy is about allowing myself to be in the process, physically, spiritually, all of the things that I need to be in order to move forward and find those moments of laughter and silliness. The second thing I like to do in terms of my own process of embracing joy is really allowing the moments of humor that can come in when you're exchanging knowledge and information with other people, and you're in a meeting and things are moving forward. And sometimes, actually most of the times, the issues that I'm dealing with my clients are not easy topics. They deal with human rights related issues, they're dealing with systemic discrimination, they're dealing with organizational change and how to move folks along a journey that we're all at different points, and how do we find connection. And some of the most human connections are through joy. It may be someone retelling a story in which they felt empowered. Somebody will share something, and we all kind of connect with each other, and it may be a story of watching a comedy or something like that. And so taking the time to find those moments where there is commonality, where there can be some laughter and joy, in moments where things can be particularly difficult, I find is very helpful. Again, it's about looking at and understanding and really teasing out, what does it mean to be joyful? Many of us are now in spaces where it's few and far between opportunities just to be in a presence of joy and laughter. And so, and I know that it's not always easy, but for me, a part of my work has to be understanding, how do we find that sort of human connection and are able to move from point A to point B, and also deal with the reality of, for those of us who do this work on a regular basis, the issue of burnout, where you're shock absorbing in many ways people's lived experiences. Sometimes those stories that the people are sharing are so traumatic, so difficult to navigate, and you're holding space for yourself, you're holding space for the group, the individual who's sharing the story. And so it's crafting those moments of finding, not necessarily in that moment, but after, even in a debrief, a way for people to sort of lift up that valve, that release valve, so that they can come to a different place and catch their breath again as they move forward into whatever they're going to do for the rest of the day, or in that project or that initiative. The third thing I will share is that, for me, listening to music, and I'm sure there are people across the globe who may be listening to this episode thinking about what kind of genre, what kind of music, the genre of music that you like. I know when I'm creating courses, when I'm doing e-learning and strategizing as to new modules that will be developed, or reviewing policies, I like to put on house music. And so if any of you are sort of house music lovers, um, when this video goes up on YouTube, I'd love to hear from you. You can send me a DM and let me know the type of house music that you embrace. So for me, it's Chicago, deep house, stuff from the 80s and the 90s, more recent things, club music, Ibiza, music that's played in Ibiza and all over the world. I love Afro house, Arabic house. I used to, at one point in my journey, I lived for many years in the United Arab Emirates, in Abu Dhabi, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and that was certainly in my more younger years. It was really important to me to sort of embrace music from the communities and countries that I lived in. And so I was fortunate and blessed enough to be able to speak Arabic and to understand Arabic. And whether it was from the Gulf countries, if it was from Lebanon or different parts of, or Egypt, the house music and not only the rhythms, but if you understand the lyrics, even if you don't understand the lyrics, quite frankly, a lot of the music transcends in terms of language, and just listening with your whole self can be quite joyful and moving, especially when you're listening to activist or advocacy songs that bring you on a journey. And like, for so many of us who appreciate music telling and music listening as a part of our journeys, our creative practices, there's always a story and an underlying story to the journey that people map out as they share their own experiences through song, through rhythm, and through the different types of instruments they select. And so for me, the joy in house music as just one genre. I love country music, classical music, folk music, a number of different genres, but I'm particularly drawn to, and I have been my entire life, house music, disco, and so on. So I'm going to drop some music into this particular episode, with some of the selections that I like that you can get on Spotify. And yeah, I think for me, the other thing that I enjoy in terms of embracing joy is thinking about, and this is sort of point 4, where can I interject joy into the lives and the journeys of the people that I am thankful and grateful that I get to work with. And so part of it is through knowledge sharing. So when I develop my courses, and whether they're virtual, hybrid, or in person, I will often integrate music into the beginning, perhaps in the middle and the end. And many years ago, it's probably almost over a decade ago, I was doing a lot of community-based education. And what I would do is, quite often in some of the offerings that I had, I would actually have a musical piece where we would listen to music from different eras, particularly around civil rights movements. As an example, Nina Simone's Strange Fruit. And I remember having maybe 30, 40 people in the room. They were listening to the music. Many people were kind of nodding and not necessarily listening to the lyrics, but the rhythm, and remembering many were born in a decade when either Nina Simone would have been alive and performing, or soon after. And then I asked them, and I replayed the song, and I asked them to listen to the lyrics from a place of understanding the disruptive aspect of what the song was doing. It was around civil rights, was around lynching and raising awareness about lynching that was happening to African American men, women, children, and folks at a time where there were particular laws in place that allowed for behaviors, anti-Black racism behaviors. And when I asked the members of the participants to basically pause and use a new framework to understand the music, it was quite moving. Many folks were moved to tears. But in the end, we were able to come to a different understanding about the power of music and how they can use music and lyrics to also inform how they host a meeting, have a conversation, obviously with responsibilities and making sure people are accountable and understand the process. But it would be another way of intervening and disrupting sometimes our everyday life at work, where we have particular stereotypes or biases, and things mean one thing to us, but then you bring in music and it shifts up our framework, and then giving a process in place where people could unpack some of the things that they never even contemplated in terms of their understanding of how different elements of stereotypes and discriminatory practices operated in the world. And so it was quite powerful. So the joy in that was to be able to move people from a place of, we're just using text and having sort of a conversation, to an exercise where they were either able to listen or they were able to use different sensory parts of their everyday practices to get a sense of what was being conveyed historically, what it meant in contemporary times, and how we could create our own sort of music and rhythm to make changes and transformation within society. And so that was particularly powerful, and the joyfulness of knowing that we could do this, not necessarily with the content at the time because it's quite serious, but the sense of, oh, there's something different that we can do. And the last thing I would share with you in terms of point 5, in terms of embracing joy, I really think it's important to integrate some kind of a reflective practice. And, throughout the episodes, you'll probably hear me talk about reflective practice a lot. I know for myself that whether it's creating a journal entry, a written journal entry, using video as a means of expression and recording myself, or a voice memo, I have found it so helpful to be able to sort of map out my journey and look at, where does my energy dip? Where do I need to integrate another element of purpose, of intention, and now laying out a foundation of purposeful joy, intentionally finding and building in joy into my practice, both on a professional level, but on a personal level. I think it's so important to do it. And so I think journaling, mapping it out, however you want to break it down, it's an important way to also think about your sense of wellness. As I said at the very beginning of this episode, that there are a lot of us who work in jobs and in particular spaces that it takes a lot out of us. Day-to-day work and engagement with different types of issues. Some of us work in sort of deep crisis areas, and it's hard to imagine what joy can be like in those moments. And so I deeply encourage you to think about your own embracing joy process, what you would like to see. If you have any ideas that you'd like to share with me, you can always send me an email at info@tomeesojourner.com. I will be setting up a WhatsApp, basically a WhatsApp group for the Make It Make Sense with Tomee Sojourner-Campbell podcast. And so you can always send a message there as well. Well, we've come to the end of the episode. Please listen to some of the songs that will be layered out throughout this podcast. And again, send me any songs that you might have. And I look forward to hearing from you. And if you want to be a guest and talk about your own process of embracing joy or anything else you'd like to talk about as it relates to the topics of workplace and current and emerging issues, please send me a message. And until next time, make it make sense with Tomee Sojourner-Campbell.